quite a guitar collection you got behind you. I see the
Oh.
Eddie Strat right there. Van Halen, was that one of your gateways into playing guitar?
Sorry, pardon?
Was Van Halen one of your gateways into playing guitar?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, who doesn't geek out to Cathedral and Eruption when you're a kid hearing that stuff? But
Spanish flies too hard, right?
yeah, I've got Nuno, two different Satrianis. My favorite is actually that Nita Strauss. That thing is unreal. Good
on you that, good on you that you can actually play at that speed. But hey, over to you, Kitt. So Sinners and Saints Volume 2 is the new record. It's a sequel to the very, very successful, acclaimed Sinners and Saints, tough speaking day today, Volume 1. When did you know that you were going to be making Volume 2?
Yeah, pretty much at the very beginning, because I'd had so many other tracks like already written out, and you only have so much budget, you only have so much time at Abbey or with this, with the orchestra and stuff. So I already had several in a can, and I had some that I just hadn't finished, and I knew it was coming, and I just wanted to get it all out of my system.
Got it. So when you had it written, did you know, for example, hey, this is the Orianthi cameo, this is the Satriani song, or did that come later?
No, I pretty much know in advance. I'll say that I'll write a lot of it, and then, I'll write it. But then I start thinking about, this is a really aggressive anthem-y kind of thing. Nita Strauss, she's like dirty and can just rock it. Whereas I knew Ori had been working on a more contemporary blues project. So I knew she'd be perfect for, Stairway or Satriani. I always know when it's going to be him. Nuno is obvious every time. So every song just has a different flavor that's calling out.
Not everybody that we're talking about here reads music. Some are ear players, some actually do read the music. Does that factor into who you're giving what part?
No, I think at this point, when you're dealing with guys like that, or even they don't have to be, on the cover of Guitar World. At this point, when you're dealing with somebody, they know the charts, they know what you're expecting. You give them an idea of the melody that you're looking for, send them a couple scales of modality. Man, these guys are pros enough. They know what they're doing.
How much of your writing these days is done on guitar versus keyboard, MIDI, synthesizer, that kind of a deal?
I would say, man, at the very first 60% or 70% of it starts with keyboards and MIDI creating that orchestra. And then I just go in, I start thinking about what would take place with the drums, guitar, and bass to just now make it a rock song. And usually it's that rhythm guitar that sets the tone for everything else.
Do you spend a lot of the time on tone? And the reason I ask that, because random example, the band Rancid, Tim from Rancid, what I hear, composes everything on an acoustic guitar, and there's almost no acoustic guitar in anything Rancid's done. That's something I find a lot of hard rock people actually write everything on acoustic. So the demo sounds 0% like the finished product.
By the time I get to sending it out to the guitar players, the MIDI demo sounds like an orchestra. It sounds like the song is going to sound. And what I really like to do is once Joe or whoever has done their part, I go back in and I start thinking, man, they had a cool little riff here. Mm-hmm. So I'll go back into the orchestral parts and let's make that tie in, or let's have call and response. So mine's a little out of order. Everything's MIDI. I lay the guitar. Then we go to London and we record the orchestra and things of that nature and build around it. It's kind of a backwards thing, but I would hate to get to the very end of everything. Okay, now let's add guitars and go, man, if I could just go back to the orchestra and do this now or that, or so.
Got it. So that's a very interesting, unique approach. Now, we talked about at the top of the conversation, Van Halen was just a tiny bit of an influence, just a tiny bit. And we know that Eddie Van Halen grew up playing classical music before he got into prog rock. In your case, what was your gateway into classical music?
I'll say I don't know whether I got into classical or whether I got in more into like the film score stuff. I mean, I just remember watching Superman and Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark and just all those. I mean, you almost recognize the theme before you recognize the movie. So it was, man, as a kid, I would have Elvis records, I would have Led Zeppelin, I would have Michael Jackson, Bee Gees, and then Motley Crue and the theme, the soundtrack from Star Wars. So my parents probably need to put me on some kind of medication for schizophrenic musicality or something. I don't know.
That or you always liked melody over lyrics?
Very much so. I do love melody.
Well, that's something I find about myself as somebody who listens to music all day and can name really obscure stuff. I don't think I could tell you all the words to any of my favorite songs ever. Never been a lyrics guy except David Lee Roth.
Fair enough. I think we'll be brother in arms on that one. I do like melody.
Got it. So volume 2, great machine behind this one, already acclaimed and all that. Do you start to think about volume 3?
Oh, very much so. I probably, there's probably 20 song ideas I have right now. And so it's prioritizing everything. My career's just taken off. So I've been so blessed over the past 4 years. I mean, obviously I've worked longer than that, but the past 4 years have been explosive for me. So now it's trying to figure out, okay, when do I get to compose and write and record and then when do I get to do these? It's just life is 16-hour days for sure, easy 16-hour days.
What was the thing that you think made the thing career-wise explode for you? Was it a particular work or a particular media appearance?
That's a good question. I think having, I had recorded with the Macedonian Orchestra and Choir, and I felt like that opened up a lot of doors because, oh, wow, it's Macedonian Orchestra and Choir. And I thought, well, how do I top that? And so I talked to Abbey Road and the London Symphony, and now you've got more street cred. I mean, and so that opened more doors. And when you drop names like Abbey Road and London Symphony, people like Joe are going to be, okay, he's not going to Abbey to do this if he's, some fly-by-night garage band or something.
Right.
And so I think that was one. I think that my shows helped a lot. They were very visual, very entertaining. And then just marketing it to the right people. There were just so many things just kind of played into play with it. But when that first #1 with Billboard hit, then all of a sudden it's street cred. Now you add the sizzle of Satriani's name and Billboard and London Symphony, and you see how it just kind of layers on itself. And over time you go, oh, I think I've got some traction here.
Right. Well, I find it very intriguing, not only your success, but that you're able to work with so many interesting people who are in the same field, but not competing with one another. And credit goes to them for that, because accountants compete with each other. Teachers, whether or not the English teachers in the same department are competing with each other because one wants to be the department chair. But we see Satriani could hang out with the others through G3 and all that kind of stuff. Now, I only know a handful of people of your world who score, compose, etc., who are also hard rock guys. There's kind of you, Jeff Cardoni, James Dooley. I don't think he usually puts it out there that he's a hard rock guy. Do you have those other composers, or are you just in your own lane at this point?
I'm in my own lane at this point. 3 years ago, I know a lot of the LA composers, San Francisco, even in London, I think that they felt like I was bastardizing orchestra.
Well, like TSO was the redhead child.
Exactly.
And then how many years later are they doing arena tours on two coasts at the same time?
Yeah. But something clicked. I was part of some different speaking groups, and I was blessed that a few of them were in on that, and they would hear me talk about the demographic for classical music is, I think, like 68 years and older. The younger musicians, they know who Bach is and Beethoven, and And then the people who are going to school to learn Bach and Beethoven, by the time they're playing in, symphonies and orchestras, are like, well, we've played all that. We've done all that. So my goal, is once I was able to explain, look, I'm not trying to be classical. I'm trying to bring a secular audience to orchestral music. So I don't write in movements. I don't write in, all these different, classical formats. Rather, I take orchestral and say, let's just do an intro, verse, chorus, and bridge and solo and build up on it. Because let's face it, you and I as a listener, when we hear the radio, we know when the chorus is coming. We know when, well, when you're listening to classical, that doesn't really happen to the everyday. And so once I started explaining all the calls and responses, and all of a sudden I was getting emails, and I got accepted. So it's a different style of music. I'm in my own lane. But the one thing I'll say is when I play someplace, let's say Carnegie Hall, we have these orchestral players, they love it. I mean, you're talking very, highbrow, sophisticated violinists and they're rocking out. They love every minute of it. They're always calling me back. The London Symphony's the same way. They'll pull me aside. Something besides Disney, so.
Right. Well, the last question I have for you before I let you go, as a fan, because clearly you have great taste. What's the last concert that you went to for fun? Not because you were going to be scoring for them or they were going to be on your record or anything like that, for fun. And it's okay if it's Dokken or something that's not in the classical realm.
Believe it or not, it was Seether. I went to go see my friends in Seether, and I wanted to just feel that punch of John's drums and just enjoy the moment. And, Seether was probably the last one.
I was at a Dodger game a couple of days ago when I was traveling, and I was going, this is a great song. Who is this? Seether. Is Seether one of the biggest bands that nobody knows is a huge band?
Bingo. I mean, John lives just down the street, but when you hear all their hits, you're like, not bad. Not a bad resume at all. Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, it's interesting to see when you take them and Breaking Benjamin, Five Finger Death Punch, all these metal and hard rock bands who can sell 8,000 tickets a night, yet they skip New York City on their tour. And you go, so they're huge. We just don't know about it here in the big cities.
True.
Well, hey, Kitt, thank you for your time. Thank you for the many years of great music, and looking forward to Volume 3.
You're way too kind. Thank you for giving me the time. I'm honored.
Paltrocast.